Hi guys, and welcome to Akua's final project. So I chose to do mine on chapter 5, which is it's not chapter 5, but like that unit on carbon and macromolecules. I'm going to start off with carbon. Carbon's really important to our to the structure of molecular things because it acts as a backbone. And the reason why carbon is like that, it can act as a backbone, is because it has 4 valence electrons and it can form 4 covalent bonds with like a lot of different atoms. That like 4 valence electron, 4 covalent bonds is called tetravalence, if I can speak, tetravalence, which makes large and complex molecules possible. So in molecules with multiple carbon, each carbon is bonded to 4 other atoms and it has a tetrahedral shape. However, when 2 carbon atoms are joined by a double bond, the molecule has a flat shape. The electron configuration of carbon gives it its covalent compatibility with many different elements. The valence of carbon and like its partners like hydrogen, oxygen, and nitrogen, which are like the most frequent things that it bonds to, are the building code that governs the architecture of living molecules. Calling it a building code, that just shows you how important it is. Carbon is really important to building molecules. So basically, this picture that you're looking at, it's just carbon like bonding in different types of shapes and like ways. Because it's so versatile, it can bond to a lot of different atoms. So it can bond by length, by double bonds, by branching, and by rings, which creates different shapes, which in like we all know creates different like kind of like function and stuff like that. So the next thing we're touching on are functional groups. And functional groups are the components of organic molecules that are most commonly involved in chemical reactions. The number and arrangement of functional groups give each molecule its unique properties. So basically, there's like a basic structure of a molecule. It has a carbon, which is called the alpha carbon. Like if you look at this carboxyl right here, I'll explain more, but if you look at this carboxyl, it has that C in the middle, not the highlighted part, the C in the middle, and that's our alpha carbon, or our backbone kind of thing. And then it has an R group right on top, and in this case the R group is the H. And then on the side, it will usually have the functional group attached. So in this case, it has the carboxyl group attached to it with that C and that double bonded O and that OH, and that's how you know it's a carboxyl molecule. So I basically just explained the carboxyl molecule, but there are like 6 other really important functional groups. There's hydroxyl, carbonyl, amino group, sulfur, phosphate, and methyl. Let's take a look at the amino group. So the amino group, it actually acts as a base, believe it or not. I know like we are like so used to hearing amino acid, but in this case the amino group acts as a base. The carboxyl group is actually the acidic one. So with the amino group, how you identify it is that N and that H and H. So you notice that it's a polar kind of shape, and it has the N instead of like think water. Water is polar, but instead of that O in the middle, we have the N. We also have a phosphate group. So for the phosphate group, the way we identify it is we have that P double bonded to the O with the 3 O's attached. So it's I want to say a tetra shape, but like I'm not trying to be wrong, but like it's 4 different things, but like you have to remember that there's a double bond to an O on top. So that's how you identify your phosphate group. Now we're moving on to basically the molecules of life. So all living things are made up of four classes of large biological molecules. They are carbohydrates, lipids, proteins, and nucleic acid. Within cells, small organic molecules are joined together to form larger molecules. Macromolecules are larger molecules composed of thousands of covalently connected atoms. The molecular structure and function are inseparable. You're going to hear that a lot in biology. Structure and function are almost go hand in hand. So basically, macromolecules are polymers built from monomers. Polymers and monomers, you got to know these terms. A polymer is a long molecule consisting of many similar building blocks. These are small building block molecules. The polymer is the long molecule consisting of the smaller building blocks, and those smaller building blocks are called monomers. So a lot of monomers make one polymer. One polymer is made up of a lot of monomers. There are three of the classes of life, the really important organic molecules that I told you about are polymers, actually, carbohydrate, proteins, nucleic acid. The synthesis and breakdown of polymers. So a condensation reaction or a dehydration reaction occurs when two monomers bond together through a loss of the molecule. So that's actually the synthesis of water molecule, the loss of a water molecule. So that's the synthesis of a polymer. So there are these things called enzymes, and they are macromolecules that speed up the dehydration process, which makes the linkage faster. Polymers are deassembled to monomers so polymers are deassembled back into monomers through hydrolysis, which is the breakdown of polymers. So a reaction it is a reaction that reverses the dehydration reaction by actually adding the water molecule into that little equation. And so what you see right now is a dehydration reaction. So you're removing that water molecule and it forms a new bond into a longer polymer. Right here, you're going to add in a water molecule and it breaks that bond that was formed, and now the two monomers are separate. So now we're going to talk about the structures of different things. Glucose and fructose. We know that they are both sugars. But they're not the same structurally. So while their chemical formula is the same, the molecules of glucose and fructose are laid out in different formations, not formulations. They both start out by making a hexagon, as you can see, with their 6 carbon atoms. Each carbon is bonded to a water molecule, but the glucose carbon is attached to both a hydrogen atom by a single bond and an oxygen atom by a double bond, whereas the fructose carbon is attached to only an oxygen atom by a single bond, and that's how they're structurally different. Next is the difference between DNA and RNA. So DNA is a long polymer with deoxyriboses and a phosphate backbone. It has 4 different nitrogen bases: adenine, guanine, cytosine, and thymine, whereas RNA is our polymer with a ribose, not a deoxyribose, because that's DNA, a ribose and a phosphate backbone. It also has 4 different nitrogenous bases. It has adenine, guanine, and cytosine, just like DNA, but instead of thymine, it has uracil. So know that RNA has that U and DNA has the T. That's it, guys. I think that's the end of our lesson. We touched on carbon and why it's so important. We touched on functional groups, which is it's essential to the building of molecules. And then we touched on the difference in structures of DNA and RNA and glucose and fructose. Well, that was a really long lesson, but I hope you learned something, because I definitely did. Thank you for watching. Bye. And then